Hello and welcome to You Are Medicine. I'm your host, Thuy. In today's show, I'll be talking with Mitch Jeserich, a veteran radio broadcaster for Berkeley's Pacifica station KPFA. Mitch is the host of Letters and Politics, a show that explores the history behind today's major global and national news stories. I've known Mitch as a patient, and a few months ago I asked him for an interview as I felt that listeners would benefit from his healing journey. He agreed to the interview, but said, in a few months' time. We settled on September and I chalked it up to his busy schedule, but during the interview, he revealed something very interesting about his decision to wait on this interview.
I still have difficult times of pain, especially this past summer has been difficult, more difficult than I went through a period of time, about 5 months, where I didn't take any painkillers at all. Mm-hmm. And I was sounding like a sage then, right? Because I'm like, oh, that's why I didn't want to do the interview, because I realized at that period of time, remember I said I'd like to do a little bit later, because I wanted to go through a tougher time again.
Are you serious?
Because I didn't want to be in this honeymoon stage.
Really?
Because I know I was sounding like a sage at the time. I felt like it, but I also knew enough that, but you're probably going through a good period of time. And what I didn't want to do is this interview, and then 6 months later, I'm up on fentanyl and I'm robbing people, trying to get money for the habit because I've been cut off of the drugs from the hospital. Right? I didn't want that to happen. And so that's why I wanted to wait. I actually wanted to go through a tougher time again before I did the interview.
That was a very interesting reveal to me, and in the moment, I didn't quite know what to think about it. I was surprised, for sure, but what's more, it revealed to me something very interesting about how Mitch, and probably other people who are in chronic pain, live with cycles of pain and time. I've known Mitch for about 1.5 years now, and in that time, we've traversed these cycles together in his journey through pain and towards healing. I trust there was some wisdom informing Mitch to wait on this interview, something that the interview itself will hopefully uncover in time. But first, let's start in the beginning. When you first came into the office, what brought you in here?
Pain.
Yeah.
And more than that, my boss recommended coming here. You were doing a radio program at the station I work at, KPFA. And, some from the station have come and did acupuncture with you, and they recommended that I try it. But I think the larger question is what really is behind why I want to come in here. And again, it was because of pain. And more than that, actually. So I am a person with a disability. I was born with a disability that's called arthrogryposis, which means I can't, simply put, it means many things, but it means I can't walk. And so I've used and I've pushed a wheelchair all my life. And in doing that, and I'm now 51, and I was pushing a manual wheelchair up until I was 49, well into my 49s. I always told myself, well, I just want to be able to push until I get to my 50th year, and that will be good. I didn't quite make it. I fell short by about 6 months, because I always knew, people who push wheelchairs for a long time end up having shoulder problems, and people usually have problems before I did. A lot of times people end up blowing out their shoulders. I don't even know what that means. In their 30s, and I was well into my 40s, again, till 49. And I just didn't push around a little bit. I push a lot. And even in my 40s, I was pushing about 5 miles a day. Mm-hmm. And I've always enjoyed going for very long, quote unquote, walks, pushes, whatever. It was always an important part of my life. And that's what I did. And, for a few years, I was feeling a little bit of pain in the shoulders. I was like, oh, this is sort of normal, whatever. And then something happened out of nowhere. A new pain emerged in my left shoulder. For years, I was feeling pain. It was harder to sleep at night. Regrettably, I'm a side sleeper. But, so I was feeling that pain for a while, actually, for years. But then something happened about 1.5 years ago, I guess. Maybe almost 2 years ago now, sort of the end of, 2021. And a new pain emerged in my shoulder, and I got kind of scared about it. So I went to the doctor, went to the hospital, and they did x-rays, and it came out that I have osteoarthritis in both shoulders. It said mild, but I think it's probably, at least in my left shoulder, probably moderate now. And I didn't think a lot of that. Growing up, people got arthritis all the time. And so what it means to get older, I guess my joints will ache, whatever that means. I had no idea what it meant. So at first I wasn't too freaked out about it. But then I got much scareder because my mom had arthritis in her hips and knees. And I saw she went through some serious pain through it. But I always thought, all right, well, they have joint replacement surgery. I'm probably heading towards that. It'll suck because I got to use my shoulders to get around, right? I use a wheelchair. I don't walk. I'm 100% dependent on my shoulders. So that'll be terrible as I go through that surgery, right? A couple months. But I'll get over it, whatever. Things will work out. Then I go see some doctors, and because of my disability, not all the muscles are fully formed around the joint area. And they say they're very doubtful they can actually do the surgery on me. And that was a real blow at that moment, because at some point, from what they told me, the cartilage is going to wear it down completely and I'll be bone on bone, which you never know how it'll play out, but there's a good chance that'll be a very painful experience. Mm-hmm. That almost any movement will be painful. And that was devastating for me, because I was like, well, wait a minute. This is how I move around, This is how I get out of bed. This is how I go to the bathroom. This is how I do everything in my life, I immediately interpreted it, and still in some ways do, though I've changed as well. My perspective has changed. But at that time, I saw it as a terminal illness, right? Because once it got to that point, I got really paralyzed, to be honest, for lack of a better term. No pun intended. I got paralyzed by fear of what that was going to mean when it got to that point. And I thought, I don't think that I would want to live past that point if it happens. I'm not suicidal. I'm not suicidal by nature. I've never been suicidal in my life, but I kind of came to this conclusion of, I won't be able to move hardly. Won't be able to take care of myself. And all that's fine. I've had friends who are true quadriplegics who couldn't move their body beneath their neck, and they live full and meaningful lives. But couple in with being in constant pain at the same time, I was thinking I'd almost prefer to be paralyzed, mm-hmm. at least then I might not be in all that pain. Mm-hmm. But to be in extreme pain all the time and just struggle to move at all, I really started thinking about, all right, I don't want to actually get to that point, or once I do get to that point, that might be it. That might be it. And so in that way, I was never suicidal in the sense of I'm going to take myself out tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But I started thinking about, well, how would I want to do it once we do get to that point,
And that was all pretty soon in the moment of you getting the news, you're already going down this sort of...
Yeah, so, the hospital was not helpful. Kaiser was pretty terrible about it all. The doctor who I saw said, there's nothing I'm going to be able to do for you. You just going to have to learn how to live with it. So it's almost like a terminal illness announcement that you're getting,
And was there this is it and this is what you have? Or was there well, maybe you can get a second opinion or get,
Well, I did get a second opinion, but I even asked the shoulder specialist, should I get a second opinion? He's like, I don't think it'll help, but sure, is what he basically told me. And then my primary doctor after that said, yeah, you're on the road towards opioids. And this is another part of the bigger, where my mindset was. My understanding of opioids is they help with pain. Not everybody likes them. I know now some people like them too much as well, and maybe I'll be that person. It's entirely possible. But my understanding about opioids is, they work pretty well at first, if they do work, but then there's diminishing returns with time. Your body no longer is creating its own, dopamine or, chemicals that are meant to deal with pain and comfort. And so now you're completely hooked on this drug just for a bare minimum of dopamine, and it's not really dealing with the pain anymore. But now you're an addict and in pain. Right. And I'm like, this isn't the life that I'm going to want to lead. And so, yeah, I started looking into like, well, what are some other things? There's this thing called acupuncture. I don't know a lot about it.
So you
It's one
just
of
did
those
that
things.
on the computer and figured that out, or?
Yeah, and basically saw I am a skeptic, I think, as you know, about a lot of things. But I saw that, even Western medicine says about acupuncture that we don't know why it works, but it seems to have some benefits. We don't know why. We can't tell you why, but there seems to be something there. And even Kaiser has an acupuncture clinic, but I was kind of done with Kaiser at that point and didn't want to go through Kaiser anymore. And again, heard good things from colleagues at work, the work you do. And so I was like, okay, I'll give it a try.
So this was the
That's
state
where I
you were
was
in.
when I came in. I was in a really bad state. The worst moment of my life,
Really?
Yeah, I just turned 50. I didn't do anything for my 50th birthday party. I just stayed home and was miserable and didn't tell anyone. I mean, it was all on my own making, Yeah, it was a bad part. It was a hard moment in life, yeah.
This was the state Mitch was in when he came to see me. It's not unfamiliar to me. People often turn to Chinese medicine when Western medicine has nothing left to offer them. Because of that, I often see people in a distressed state and turning their hopes towards Chinese medicine. Being the self-proclaimed skeptic that Mitch is, he wasn't quite putting his faith in Chinese medicine, but I do think he was hoping that Chinese medicine could offer a solution to pain and arthritis that Western medicine could not. In a way, I appreciate his skepticism. It's a level-headed way to approach anything, for sure, and less pressure on me. And yet, the thing is, skepticism in and of itself is contained within a scientific worldview that assumes that an objective separation of the skeptic from what is being considered is possible, as if the skeptic has no influence on the outcome of what is being considered. There are other worldviews, one where separation, in the sense that we assume it to be, is not the true underlying reality that everything is built upon. Chinese medicine comes from a worldview that assumes everything is connected and therefore influences one another. Most people are aware of how this pertains to the body, the example that a headache might result from an imbalance in other parts of the body, and not just stemming from the head. This worldview of interconnectedness does not limit itself to just the things inside the body, but also everything outside the body. Our body is affected by and connected to uncountable things outside the body as well. Most notably, in the ancient texts of Chinese medicine, it is known that nature and the seasons affect the body, emotions and stress, food and drink, relationships, work and leisure, and also predispositions we inherit from our parents and ancestors are all influencing our state of health. The person is seen as an extension of all things on earth as well as under the heavens. So, what does all this have to do with Mitch's shoulder pain? Well, everything, if we fully allow for the interconnected worldview that Chinese medicine came from. From Western medicine's mechanical and materialist perception, none of it matters. An aging shoulder will wear out and result in pain that can only be controlled by drugs. But what is pain? We know that pain is a subjective experience and that it's quite unpredictable how much pain a person might feel from any situation. Mitch isn't really coming to me for aging and deterioration. He's coming to me for pain. What is pain? Is pain inevitable? Do both worldviews, Chinese medicine and Western medicine, regard pain in the same way? And which therapies might offer better relief or solutions? I asked Mitch about what he has employed for pain relief up until the time he came to see me. And at that point, had you started taking other painkillers or anything like that?
Yeah, so, for years I've been taking ibuprofen.
On and off?
On and off, but I didn't know about the harmful effects that continual use of ibuprofen could cause.
Mm-hmm.
And just oddly enough, right around this same exact time, I started developing stomach problems that I'm pretty sure was being caused by taking too much ibuprofen. Everything all just seemed to happen at once. And by this point, I've been taking ibuprofen for years. Not daily, but usually several times a week, you know. I'd go months without taking it, but then I would go, weeks with taking it every day. I was taking mostly, exclusively ibuprofen until that started happening, this period of time, right before I started to come see you. And I say right before, it was about a period of about 5 months that this was happening. I saw you in May, starting in May. And really from January on, this is sort of the state that I'm in. So then I started taking other stuff, like all the other stuff that they have that's over the counter. And then I got prescribed another drug that might help my stomach with the effects of ibuprofen. So now I was taking drugs to help me with the drugs that I was taking, And eventually I was like, this is crazy. This is nuts. What am I doing? I'm just messing myself up. And so since I came, started doing acupuncture, I haven't quit, as you know, taking ibuprofen, but I've significantly reduced the amount of ibuprofen that I take, and I'm very thankful for that.
Do you remember the first treatment, because you had never had acupuncture before, and the background of the state you were in when you came in? Do you remember what it was like for you at all?
The first treatment?
Yeah.
I do remember it. Yeah, no, I remember having a very intense experience when I was actually having it. Almost hallucinatory, actually. I haven't had that since. But
wait, tell me. You haven't told me that.
Well, I mean, you haven't asked. But the curtains in the room they usually have me in, they have those designs.
Yeah.
I was seeing some serious patterns within those designs and things. And even a face kind of emerged. Yeah, I haven't seen it since. So I don't know what any of this means. It just happened.
So interesting.
Yeah.
So that's what you remember from the first treatment.
And that's what I remember. No, I remember more. But just wanted to give you the whole thing.
You're really selling the acupuncture now.
That hasn't happened since. I want to be very clear. I haven't hallucinated since.
Yeah.
But it was a definite selling point at the moment. Absolutely. Yes, I'm doing this again. And then afterwards, I don't know, whatever it was, I felt a little bit better in the shoulders that day. And I remember going, and one of the places I really like to sit is in the Lake Merritt Garden in Oakland. And I went there afterwards, and I thought to myself at that moment, okay, maybe there will, I'm still pretty negative about my long-term prognosis of what's going to happen. That's still there. But at that moment, I thought, okay, at least there might still be some good days ahead. Maybe there'll be some good days here and there. And the truth is, if there's going to be some good days still ahead, because, pain kind of comes and goes. There's an up and down cycle to it. And I've noticed that for me, at least up to now, it's very cyclical. But as long as I know that I'll get to a point where that there'll be days that are better, it makes dealing with the harder days easier. You could bear through it, and that was significant for me, because at that point I was like, this is gonna, it's funny now, then when I first came to see you, I wasn't sure if I was gonna really make it to the new year,
Wow.
Again, I still have big questions about my long-term prognosis over all of this, but I'm not at that point anymore. I can easily see myself still here a year from now or so.
Mitch's recounting of his first acupuncture experience regarding hallucination was a bit of a surprise to me, because he hadn't told me that before, but not really a surprise in its content. It's not uncommon for people to report unusual and altered sensations and perceptions during their acupuncture treatment, including hallucinations, sensations of levitation, altered time, spiritual visitations, and trance states are all regularly reported to me. It's not usually a regular experience by a patient for every treatment, but it's quite common that patients experience some variety of these feelings during their treatments. What is that? Well, acupuncture works on the qi level, And while there is no adequate translation for qi, we can say that it is the invisible force behind time and space, and that it makes up everything in the universe, not excluding us, of course. In that sense, it connects everything inside us with everything outside of us, so alterations in our own qi field could affect our perception of the external qi field. And while the hallucinations were an interesting report from Mitch, what felt more healing and touching was his report of what happened after the treatment, when he was sitting by the lake. The thought that there might be good days ahead. Such a powerful thought that brought relief to what sounded like months of anguish after hearing such a bleak prognosis by his doctor. Was there something that linked the hallucinations during the treatment with that insight later? What is a hallucination but a mind-altering experience? And what is change of mind but a mind-altering experience? And what does mind have to do with pain? Mitch and I continue to discuss this in the context of meditation and Buddhism.
I like the philosophy of Buddhism as a philosophy. And I think it's a great way of life. I just can't keep to it, especially the meditation part. But I always thought to myself, one day you will really need this. And I didn't know it would be this soon. I thought it would be later. But yeah, I did need it. And it has actually helped out a great deal. And with meditation, the first time I actually learned, I feel like, to meditate was while I was getting acupuncture.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because, well, don't take this the wrong way, but there's not really a whole lot else to do while you're stuck with needles everywhere. You're just kind of sitting there. So, you're sort of thrusted into it, really. I mean, it kind of came to me on a silver platter, to be honest. It was right there. But what I really learned, before, when I tried to meditate, I'm a real crank when it comes to sound. I get annoyed by sound really quickly. If I hear it from neighbors, cars passing by with their stereos blaring, whatever, I'm a good old crank when it comes to these things. And I was treating meditation before. It has to be perfectly quiet and still. And do I hear a car going down the street? They're screwing with my meditation. Is there a fly inside here? I can't meditate now, And I actually learned, I remember when I first came here, I was like, okay, this is Chinese medicine, traditional medicine. We're talking about energy, the Tao, all these. Shh, gotta be quiet. And then one day when I came in, Quincy, my former boss, and his son Lou were there. And they're like, hey, what's up? And we were talking really loud. And I remember you were trying to talk to this other woman who was clearly in pain. And I got really self-conscious about it. I'm like, well, maybe we should take our talk outside, man. And so, I bring them outside, and then we come back in. And this is the early time when I was first coming in. So I didn't, really know yet. And we sat down and I apologized to you. And you're like, I don't know. What do you mean? No. It's like, I see this like a family restaurant. We're loud all the time. And I really learned by sitting quietly trying to meditate in that room that you really are loud all the time. And never mind that you're on like a really loud street too, I mean, it was real. It was true. And I meditated through it. It was totally eye-opening experience for me in doing that, because I was like, oh, the idea of meditation is to be able to do it and not freak out about all these sounds and noise that are going on. But, oh wow, this is kind of one of the powerful things about meditation is you become observant of your own mind, and instead of being impulsive to every time some irritant comes, and now you're like, what is that? And you're getting upset and angry. Oh, no, what you do is you learn not to be that way and to be with it. And so I learned that really meditating in your acupuncture room. But what I also learned through it was observing your own mind and how you're thinking. And I also learned this teaching because I went on YouTube. I'm like, what did the Buddha say about pain? And I found this video, and it was a talk. And this white guy, which immediately I'm like, white guy in a robe. What's he going to say? But I listened to it anyways. And I'm a white guy too, just to be clear, who's practicing Buddhism, just to be even clearer, who's talking about it now for your podcast. So, it's funny how the world works. So anyway, but that's I like white shaved head, wearing a robe, like a Tibetan robe or something. And he goes this story. He had this story about pain because he was asked about it. And he says, well, pain is like getting hit with 2 darts. The first dart is the actual pain, the actual physical pain. And there's nothing we can do about that. It is what it is. The second dart is the emotional turmoil that comes with that first dart, that pain, of how your mind starts working and how you respond to the pain. That is something we could deal with. And when he said that, my reaction to it was, oh, that's not what I need. That's not going to help the pain. Right? It's like, but that's dumb.
And then?
Well, like a lot of these teachings, right? They seem simple at first. And the longer they stay with you, if you don't forget about them, they become deeper. And I started to realize that that was right. I started to realize I felt pain. The inner workings of my mind was, okay, my shoulder hurts. Okay, this means that I'm losing cartilage. This means that I am going to be in a moment in the future in which the bones are rubbing up against each other. It's going to cause a great deal of pain, which means I'm not going to be able to move around, which means I'm not going to be able to take care of myself, which means I'm not going to get out of bed, which means I'm probably not going to want to live through this, which probably means I'm going to, I'm spiraling downward in my mental process of how I was approaching pain. And through the meditation, the one thing you do is you become observant of your mind and how you're thinking about things. And I was able to observe what I was doing. And I was able to, not always, right? There's no any, some days are better than others, but I was able to better put in check what my mind was doing and to keep me from spiraling downward.
Listening to Mitch recount his relationship to Buddhism, that his meditation practice began during acupuncture, and his growing understanding of mind, meditation, and Buddhism in relation to his pain was enlightening to me. Not that we hadn't talked about these things in pieces, but there were details about it that I didn't know about that put things in perspective. For example, I didn't quite know his experience of the hustle and bustle inside and outside the clinic, and that he made it part of his meditation practice and understanding and his healing journey. In that sense, his worldview was moving away from a modern Western narrow compartmentalized understanding of pain existing in his shoulder to a more broad understanding of the involvement of mind in the experience of pain and the world at large. Mitch went on to tell me about an inspiration and meditation that he stumbled upon in the Buddhist world to help him cope with his pain.
Just to make this even a crazier story, how I found Thich Quang Duc as a bit of a teacher.
I remember that.
Right? Thich Quang Duc was a Buddhist monk, Vietnam, and we all know of Thich Quang Duc because he is the Buddhist that set himself on fire, protesting. This is already the Vietnam War era, protesting the South's persecution of Buddhists at the time. And we all have the famous videos out there, photos, but there's also a video of him putting gasoline on himself, lighting himself on fire. And as he's in fire, he remains in a perfect meditative position. He dies, right? But he doesn't move. He doesn't scream. He's in perfect stillness. And when I saw that, I was like, how'd you do that? You know, I mean, that's the ultimate pain right there. How did you, now I'll never get there by meditating 20 minutes a day, which is what I do, right? He went through rigorous training, but I looked at that and I was like, oh, how can you train your mind to be able to withstand pain? There's a big monument of him in Vietnam where this happened. Somebody who's revered. Thich Nhat Hanh wrote to Martin Luther King Jr., which started their relationship in the 60s, writing about Thich Quang Duc, saying, do not see this as a suicide. See this as something else very different, explaining. And that like sparked a relationship in which Martin Luther King, the year after he won the Nobel Peace Prize, nominated Thich Nhat Hanh for the Nobel Prize, which was interesting. And it was their relationship started over by that thing, you know. But I look at that, and I say I see him as a teacher. Obviously he's dead now, but I see it as like, oh, how can I train my mind to try to deal with pain? And I'll never get to that level because I'm not disciplined enough. Again, 20 minutes a day, right? But that to me was a teacher that, oh, we can deal with pain in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I think about that story, and I think what it provides, I think what's fascinating is more, I think about the relationship. I think you say, how does the mind deal with pain? And I question if pain is a separate thing from the mind.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what it is, right? Signals to the brain if this is not working out so well.
Right, but does our mind decipher? How can we figure out how to decipher that where it doesn't feel like pain? Is it that he's not experiencing pain? Or is he withstanding pain? It's curious to me, right? When I watch the video of Thich Quang Duc self-immolating, it's hard for me to imagine he is withstanding pain. He seems perfectly poised in an almost relaxed and absorbed way, and it seems to me that he isn't feeling pain at all. And that to me is very hard to imagine, but opens up a whole world of possibility in my understanding of pain. Can we actually train our minds to not receive pain signals? What is the relationship of fear with pain? Thich Quang Duc doesn't seem the least bit afraid either. He seems to transcend fear, the body, and pain. How does that inform or affect what we think of as pain? Is there a first dart and a second dart, or is it all one dart, the dart of the mind? I continue to talk with Mitch on this topic. Just from my relationship with so many patients and seeing so many things, it fascinates me how so many different people have different relationships to pain. So what is that? It's not an objective thing that, that happens in the same way to everybody. And I think even when our first meeting, I told you that I know people who have no cartilage and who don't have pain. And I know people who have ample cartilage and nothing seems to be wrong with them, but they have pain. Mm-hmm. What is pain?
Yeah. Or the person who's amputated, has amputated limb, and they could still feel pain.
Yeah, the question of what is pain is very fascinating, but that I know that it's variable, and that is tremendous. I know that we can have different relationships to it. Mm-hmm. And I also know from Chinese medicine that it's stagnation. So where is the stagnation? Is it in the mind? Is it in the body? How can we help move it from all levels, All pain is stagnation. It's like energy not being able to flow smoothly through the channels, energy and blood. So all it is stagnation. So in my mind, when I treat people with the acupuncture needles and the topical that you like and the herbs do, is they help to move the stagnation. But I'm always wondering, is there other elements that are creating stagnation in a person's life that can be changed as well, that can be moved. And a lot of stagnation exists in our mind before it comes into our body. And more like the second dart. Because clearly if you're wheeling or, doing any physical thing over an extended period of time, you can have injury. That's not a mental stagnation. And also maybe there's some mental stagnation that is motivated to progress in that physical way too. So it's not completely separate either. So I think wanting to get to know, what elements of the pain is that second dart, that we can understand where stagnation is in the psyche, in the emotions, in the mind, in the habits, and where we can kind of move the chi in that way. When people change their perception and orientation towards things, just like how you beautifully put it in your story about how just changing the way you thought, like, oh, there are good days ahead. What a complete difference it makes. So I feel like that journey with you and just getting to know you and understanding has been fun and interesting in the sense that you are a skeptic. And I want to say skeptic in the sense that we are all skeptical. We're just picking what we're skeptical about. So when you had that diagnosis from that Kaiser doctor, you took it quite seriously. You had a big spin.
I was not skeptical about that.
Exactly.
That's right. No, right. That's fair.
So it's me like trying to figure out like, where your mind is with things and how can we create less stagnation in that. It is my hope that simply understanding pain as stagnation opens up a world of possible remedies we may not have considered, as well as gives us an understanding of why we feel relief in some situations and more pain in others. What is stagnation? I find that when I use that word, it has a very palpable resonance for many people. Stagnation, stuckness, lack of ease and flow. It's like a clogged drain. A dream when you want to run, but you're weighed down and running in slow motion. An annoying recurring pattern that you can't seem to break free from. We've all experienced it emotionally and psychically. Physically in the body, it's a feeling of pain, heaviness, creakiness, lack of fluidity. So how do we move this stagnation, break free from these patterns? Well, many of us intuitively find ways to do that in our everyday life. Some ways are supportive of our overall health and well-being short-term as well as long-term, like moderate exercise and deep relaxation or meditation, while other ways are more effective short-term but tax our bodies long-term, like caffeine, alcohol, and drugs. I talked to Mitch about this. I feel better after drinking alcohol.
Yeah.
That moves stagnation.
Oh,
I remember
no,
that conversation we had.
That changed my... Actually... That made me a little less skeptical about the whole chi thing and energy, because when you said, because it's true, I'd have to drink a lot, which I'm totally capable of doing. But if I got really hammered, my shoulder felt great. Even the next day, my shoulder felt great. In fact, it's probably the best. It's not every time I get hammered, and I don't do it as much as I used to. But it felt great. And when you told me alcohol releases the chi in all kinds of wild ways, really, right? And that totally made sense to me about alcohol, right? Because not only did my shoulder feel better, but I probably was talking a lot louder. I was probably very boisterous, probably even absurdly so. You know how we are when we get, no, that's chi? Oh, that makes sense to me. That was actually the first time I felt like I understood chi. When you explained what alcohol did.
Because you could feel it.
Because, well, I know the effect of what happens when I'm on alcohol.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are we just promoting people drink their pain away here or what?
No.
Come on, I need a follow-up here, Mitch. What else did I say?
I don't remember anything after that, Thuy. I think I stopped listening after that point, Well, no. It's too much. Like it's unsustainable. It's too much. you can't keep doing it. And it doesn't work every time. Otherwise, maybe that's exactly what I'd be doing, you know. And in fact, I haven't found it to work more recently. I have had times where I've drank a lot and it wasn't actually helping.
I mean, it's not really that different from opioids, where things can help, but then it takes over the body's function to regulate itself, and then you become dependent on this thing and its
Yeah.
side effects, right?
Yeah.
So, but one of the things I do, and I hope I don't get misunderstood for this, is I personally see everything, even our vices, as a way that we try to medicate ourselves. So, people drink coffee because they don't have energy, and coffee actually does give you energy. But of course, it does a bunch of other things, but we're using it like people use medicine,
Yeah.
like alcohol,
Yeah.
right? It's just we have to understand also the consequences. We have to understand the future. And I think if we use it responsibly, I don't think there's anything that's bad. I mean, poisons are even remedies sometimes in the
Yep.
right dosage.
Yep.
So I think with me and you, we're just going through this process of figuring out, because after that, you do think about it when you drink too, and you do make an informed decision. Well, it doesn't work every time, and it's the drawback to, my body. But I kind of can use a little bit now, and the joy I have with, hanging out with my friends also actually moves chi.
Yeah.
So we're always doing that in life.
Yeah.
And I think that that's why labeling something as good and bad, and you have to do it this way and that way, it's just a misunderstanding of medicine and healing. So, I mean, another very interesting moment I had with you in our relationship is you came in one day and you're like, well, my shoulder's been feeling so much better. And so we started talking about a bunch of reasons why, and you kind of sheepishly said, I started playing video games, and so I'm moving my shoulders in a certain way, and it could be that. And what I thought was interesting about that was how sheepish you were about it, because you had lots of judgments about playing video games. Now I'm outing you.
Yeah. You went right into the closet, brought it out.
And I thought it was a wonderful thing that you found something and your shoulders are moving in a certain way, and it helps to alleviate pain, but you had some resistance to it. And anyway, I want you to tell that story.
So I bought a PlayStation in sort of late January. And one of the reasons why I did it is because of my shoulders. It's harder for me to travel. And I'm also a little more wary of traveling. And I like traveling. The last trip I had planned was canceled because of the pandemic. Supposed to get on a plane a couple of days after everything was shut down. And so that never happened. And traveling and seeing the world, something important to me. But I was like, I'm not sure I could do that now, because now I'm using a motorized chair. It's very heavy, very big. Yeah. I'm uncomfortable with like having to climb things that I might need to climb if I'm traveling because of my shoulders. And again, I'm trying to kind of just keep the cartilage for as long as I possibly can. So I was like, what can I take some of this money I was going to spend on these tickets and do something that I can at least, have a different kind of trip. And so I got a PlayStation and I started playing video games. And I got into one particular video game very much. And as I was doing it, I was noticing when I was done playing, my shoulder felt better. It was hurting going into it. It felt better going out. And really, the best time period that I've had, and being able to at least go, one way I try to measure how pain's going for me is if I'm taking ibuprofen or not. And right after I started playing video games, I went 5 months without taking anything. And, could be nothing to do with the video games. I'm always like, but I don't know really what's going on, if that's even what it is. Chances are it's a lot of different things, right? Because we also found I started paying attention to weather very closely, and I found in a chart that that same time period is a moment where we have very low humidity in the Bay Area. So, and then of course, and there's acupuncture and there's herbs and there's just all kinds of things. And they probably all have their effect. But that was my experience. And it was very visceral. Like I said, I could have my shoulder hurting, play a couple of hours of video games, felt better. I just thought of it, maybe that must be the chi and blood circulation that's going through the shoulder, traveling to the hand, and that makes sense. I have to say, now I'm not having that same experience with it. In fact, sometimes after I'm done playing a game, I feel sore again in the shoulder. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what that's about.
Right. As we can see, there are many things that can move qi. For example, acupuncture, alcohol, video games. In my observation of Mitch's journey, nothing sticks or is dependable every time, not even painkillers or acupuncture. There is a pattern of things working for some time and then stopping working for a bit and maybe working again. Why is that? Why does something stop working over a period of time? I think the answer is complicated and multifold, but the short answer is in line with traditional Chinese medicine, because there are many more factors than just the one we are focused on that influences any outcome. In our habitual worldview, we are used to thinking about things as separate and static. Does this thing do this thing to me? As if all agency is contained within the thing or the person wielding the thing, and our own relationship to it does not affect an outcome. It is common for people to ask me a question that sounds something like, can acupuncture fix my back pain? Or can acupuncture make me lose weight? And sometimes in reply, I ask them the question back, can acupuncture help you lose weight? To try to clue them into the fact that they do have a say in how the acupuncture supports them. Oftentimes I get a very perplexed look and like, wait a minute, I asked you that question. Aren't you the acupuncture expert? It's true, I guess, I am the acupuncture expert, but I am not the healing expert. We are all the healing expert of our own bodies, and everyone really should know that their ability to heal is no less and no more than another person. And the first part of being your own healing expert is to trust that about your body, and to trust and understand the signals that your body is sending you. The second part about being your own expert is to move towards the healing that your body is asking for. Acupuncture can be part of that, but it doesn't do it independently from you. People sometimes ask me, do I have to believe in acupuncture for it to work? The answer is kind of, in the sense that your body can actually override and reject acupuncture. You don't so much have to believe in it, but it is helpful that you stay open to it. You can have a quote-unquote bad treatment if you are fearful, contracted, suspicious, angry, or any host of resistant emotions. You will be fighting the treatment because acupuncture works on the qi level. And if it is trying to move qi and you are actively resisting that with stagnating emotions, it might not be a great treatment. Now, I'm not saying that all treatments or even most treatments that don't feel great is a result of your bad attitude. I'm just using this as one thing that can affect an outcome. Chinese medicine considers many aspects that affect a treatment, including the season, time of day, type of needle used, length of needle retention, mental physical state of the practitioner, not just the patient, room temperature, what the patient may or may not have eaten, and even more factors. I personally think that the real number of factors that affect any given time and outcome is uncountable, but the point is there are many reasons why a thing doesn't have the same outcome every time. It's because there are many more factors than just the acupuncture points, or the alcohol, or the gaming. Another factor is that chronic pain can be so debilitating that when something does work, there can be a fixation and attachment to it that creates its own expectation and stress that causes a pattern of stagnation. Being attached to relief from pain is in its own way attachment to the pain, where pain is the central focus, two sides of the same coin. The very hard trick to break from the cycle of chronic pain in the mind is to diminish the central role that pain is taking up in one's life while attending to it. Meditations that guide a person to zoom out from the pain to notice other things in the present moment, in the room, in one's life, can help create space around the pain and put the pain in perspective, allowing space for stagnation to move through. Along this vein, Mitch talked to me about another very important element of his acupuncture treatment that has helped his pain, one that doesn't include the needles.
And I think one of the things that have really helped me in this journey is coming here and just seeing you. You know, I don't know how much of it is acupuncture, how much of it is whatever whatever you put on afterwards that gives me that nice tingling feel. I don't even know what that's called.
Zhang Shui.
Yeah, I like the Chang Gu Shui a lot, and that's some good stuff. But I also found somebody that I didn't get from my doctor who wanted to follow my journey with pain with me, it felt like. You know, somebody that I come to, you know, once a week for a time, a couple times a week, whatever it is, who I come see regularly and talk to about it. And that was really significant, you know, because people in your lives, they want to know, but not all the time, you know. To have somebody to be able to talk things through about it was really big for me. It was really important to have someone else there. Okay, so now, you know, how was it? How was your last week? And to talk that through. I can't overestimate how important that actually was. And it was very important.
Because in the talking, what happens?
I don't know. You know, I think in the talking is just, I wasn't as isolated as I was before I came in. I was really just locked in myself, you know, and just dealing with myself. And I was in a negative place and it was spiraling down. And, you know, the first time I saw you, you said, well, not only do I think we can help the pain, I think we can bring healing, right? And I was skeptical about that. And I remember, probably not the first day, but sort of early on, you said, well, you know what, one of the issues you have is your doubt. And I think I said something like, well, I doubt that. And I am skeptical by nature. That part is very true, you know. And that's how I see it. It's just, you know, sort of skeptical in nature. It's the journalist in me. But I actually also realized I needed somebody to tell me something different than there's nothing you can do. It's going to get worse and you're on the road towards opioids. I needed a different story from that. You know, it even made me think a little bit differently about like faith, which I'm not a man of faith, but it's like, oh, people need to believe that they can do something. We need that, you know, as humans. And so when you said that, even though I was skeptical, I still needed to hear that. I still needed somebody to be like, yeah, you can figure this out. You know, you can figure out how to live with it and even heal. And what I took at that moment, when I was like, oh, no, I don't think so. What I took at that moment was, we're going to heal the cartilage that is deteriorating. And maybe even that's what you meant, but I'm not sure, because I ended up taking it in a very different way, because I realized, oh, acupuncture and Chinese medicine, it's holistic, and you're trying to heal the whole body. And that, it wasn't just my shoulder that was the problem when I came in. It was my mental being, where I was. And, you know, coming here started to put me on a path that actually did start to bring a more holistic healing. I don't know, you know, I haven't gotten x-rays, kind of don't want to at this point. I don't know the state of my cartilage since I've started coming in here. And we could talk about like what's happened. I've had good moments, you know, I've had prolonged good moments. Right now, I'm back in the up and down cycle. I'm still experiencing pain. I do worry that the cartilage has continued to deteriorate. And, every time I'm in pain, there is a part of me, it's like, oh, is this it forever? Is it now here? Or is the bone and the bone about to touch? And is this, going to be what it is? It's just what I do. But at the same time, I've developed a different approach to it.
It was very wonderful to hear Mitch's report about how the treatments have affected him. What I meant by saying that traditional Chinese medicine can help him heal was indeed far beyond the cartilage, and is very much what Mitch took from it, and actually what he has demonstrated in our journey together. And what I noticed about his doubt wasn't meant to have him put his faith and allegiance in acupuncture per se, but to nudge him to open up to possibilities of healing and wellness, possibilities of transcendence in ways that might even surpass his condition before the pain that stopped him in his tracks. I believe in our innate healing capacities. I believe that pain is not necessarily inevitable, but if it presents itself, it can be a wisdom and not a brokenness or limitation if we lean in and listen to what it's trying to tell us. I think Mitch is on that path. He had this to report when I asked him if he had anything more to add to the interview.
I was talking to an aunt some time ago, and she would say stuff like, she meant well. I really hate that this is happening for you. And, just really, it really bothered her. And my reaction to her was, it's not all bad. I would rather not be in pain. But having this happened has deepened my life in a way that otherwise wouldn't have happened. Part of the thought process was I kept thinking about the future when it'll just be so painful and so difficult that I was locked in the future, that it was almost as though I was already there. And I might as well have been there, And what I realized is like, wait a minute, yeah, you're in pain now, but it's just pain. And that right now I'm still okay. Right now I can still move around. Right now I can still live my life. I should concentrate on that. And it taught me really to be in the moment right now where things are, it's a struggle, but it's okay. I can still handle things right now, I can still deal with things. And it really sort of got me back to this, kind of like this sort of Buddhist concept, of living in the moment, being in the moment. And that has been a deep experience that I might not have had otherwise, of doing that. And so, though I might not be able to travel abroad, it has made me go through a different kind of journey that has really, I think, deepened life than otherwise would have had. And I'm in that way, it's not all bad. In fact, in some ways, I'm even thankful for that.
A deep bow to Mitch for sharing your healing journey with us, a journey which will undoubtedly support healing for our listeners. I appreciate your time, wisdom, and down-to-earth nature of your sharing. And despite your best efforts to avoid, quote-unquote, sounding like a sage, by waiting until the pain came back again to do an interview, you actually sounded even more like a sage. While you're a self-proclaimed skeptic, I'll proclaim myself a mystic just to contrast our different approaches. And in my spiritual worldview, I wholeheartedly believe in your capacity to heal in untold, unimaginable ways, that being pain-free is just the minimum of what we all want. And I call upon the spirit of Thuy as a demonstration of our immense capacity for transcendence, for compassion and love. Thank you all for listening to this program. To hear more from Mitch, tune into his radio show, Letters and Politics, at KPFA's 94.1. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review and subscribe in your favorite podcast app and help us spread the word by telling all your family and friends. Join us next time for another healing program on You Are Medicine. Goodbye.